So if you could pick one character that you feel either it's a two-part question. What character do you feel carried the finale, and then what character do you like resonate the most with over the entire show as like this it was my favorite character? Avandra, what do you got?
Um, carried the show, or at least carried the season.
Carried the finale and then carried the show.
Carry the finale. I want to say, I don't know. That's tough. That's a tough one because they
I
all
know.
had
That's why
really
I'm here.
major
I'm asking the tough
moments.
questions.
Yeah, they all had really, really major moments. I don't think one character carried that whole finale. I think Will was integral to the finale. Um, I think, I mean, I don't know. It's tough to say. Like, I liked the moments that I enjoyed the most are probably Dustin's moments because Dustin always hits you with that little piece of humor and that always that like jab, but at the same time, he's the one that shows the most emotions. Like when he's keeping Steve from going up those steps. I can't do this again. I can't die again. I can't have it happen again. And he just breaks down and him and Steve have that moment. Like, just like, it's like, it was so, I was like, dude, that's like right there. Like that gets me right there. Um, my favorite character of the show is Hopper, because
Hell
he
yeah.
goes from being this like beer belly, like police chief in this tiny ass town to taking on Russians. And like, you get that, like, I feel like he was the one that had the most growth on the audience because he always had this backstory, and then you start to like he's the most layered, I think. He like first you just see him as this like beer-bellied police chief, then you find out he had a daughter who died, then you find out he was in Vietnam, like then you like he was like, he was something special in Vietnam. Like you go through all these things with him and you're like, "Oh shit, this guy is not just what you're seeing. There's more to it." The whole thing in the Upside Down when he's got Elle in the tank and you see the herbicide. So that's a callback to Vietnam, and that's like a thing. That was Agent Orange. Agent Orange actually affected males in Vietnam. That it has. I'm not a scientist, and I haven't read any like medical journals about this, but according to things that I have read, Agent Orange affected male reproduction, that and specifically if they had daughters, it would lead to something in the genetics that would cause cancer and other diseases to
Oh, that's
happen more
interesting.
into that. That's why he says, you killed one daughter, you're going to kill another. Like, because and he says, you're the reason she died. Like, and this second daughter will be the reason another one dies. You'll be the reason another one dies. Like, that's why he sees the cans of herbicide, because that's what Agent Orange was. It was like herbicide that we used to use on crops, and we figured out, oh, it could kill people, let's use that. um so like I feel like Hopper had the most, he definitely had the most emotional roller coaster of the show. And I think he was probably one, not the only, but one of the foundational pillars of the show. That if he died, I think it would have had the most impact on the story in and of itself. I don't know if you could have had the finale without him, you know. But yeah, I can't answer you in terms of who would carry like the season or the finale. It's just it's too spread out. I feel like everybody had their key moments.
Charles?
So for the finale, I feel like Holly probably. I would say Holly probably carried the finale. I would even probably say that she kind of carried the whole final season. Um, I do feel like she was kind of the main character this season.
I
Um,
agree.
for the whole series though, I agree that Hopper has the most interesting background, but I think that Steve Harrington has the most development. I think Steve Harrington has the biggest transformation because he's a total prick in the first season.
That
Um,
is true.
and you know, seeing who he is in season one, and then if somebody had told you, yeah, he's going to end up being a babysitter, you'd be like, what? Like that guy? Yeah, no, he was a total douchebag, and I do really like Steve. Um, but yeah, I mean, as far as like carrying the whole show, though, I definitely would have to say Hopper. I think Hopper carries the show. He's the paternal figure, and Joyce is the maternal figure. I think those two are the real like bones to the whole thing. I think the most useless character is Mike. I think that pretty much anything could be done, and you could take Mike out of it.
Yeah,
Like seriously, like just
I
think
was
about
shocked.
every situation and take Mike out, and I don't think anything would have changed. Like he's absolutely
Uh
useless.
Yeah, he's portrayed as kind of like the leader of the group, but he ends up
it's
being
He doesn't
because
like
do
you know
anything.
why?
he's like Michelangelo,
He
but without all the good jokes.
but he does influence Holly, he influences 11 in terms
Yeah,
of how they make their decisions, which is what a DM does. What a dungeon master does in a D&D game is they let others make the decisions. He just helps guide them in the way that they can fulfill their greatest potential. Like it's not up to the DM to
Anybody
give you the
else could do
story.
that though.
yeah,
You're
Anybody else
right.
could do what,
You're
yeah.
right.
you know what I mean?
Dustin
Like
could do that. Yeah, like they.
yeah.
But at the same time, he did it.
But yeah,
He did it.
it was weird. I would say Mike definitely had the biggest down arc of the entire show because he, really started off as pretty much the main character next to 11 outside of Hopper in terms of just the kids, and then he just kept falling by the wayside in terms of maybe it was just because of fan reaction that they started propping up like Dustin more and stuff like that because of people just resonating more with the other kids than Mike. So Mike kind of just fell by the wayside. So yeah, I gotta agree with Charles. Like I was kind of surprised to see like he kind of did nothing in the finale
No,
outside
yeah,
of that little
agree.
talk with
Holly.
outside of the little talk. No, not even the little talk with Holly. The talk with Will going up the ladder, and then obviously
Oh.
the end of the show, the epilogue there. Like nothing. He contributed nothing. Um, so
You know, I do think so. Hopper and Joyce are like the bones of the whole show, but I think Will is probably the main character. Like now that I'm thinking back on rewatching the whole
yeah,
series,
I agree.
like even 11 is more of a tool to get Will back. Like everything goes back to Will, and he's the one that goes through the transformation, right? Because 11 had powers from the start. There is no like like sure she hones her skills and she gets better, but it's inherent like from the moment that we meet her. But with Will, it's something that he has to discover and that he unlocks like when he needs it most, and he has to go through the ultimate metamorphosis of like being his true self and all this other stuff. So honestly, I think he's probably the protagonist of the whole show now that I'm thinking about it from a narrative structure.
I
Yeah,
yeah.
agree.
so he probably
That's a really great way to look at it.
That's who I was gonna pick
yeah,
in terms of like who carried the show. I was gonna say it was Will because of everything you
yeah.
just said, Charles. Like while he was a character again that you don't look at him as the main character, especially in the first season because he's captured. He's
Hmm.
not shown a lot. He's the objective. You know what I mean? So you don't get a lot of that. But over the course of the entire show, like it is like you said, it's all about Will. Not from the main character standpoint, but from Vecna's. Everything that's happening
Yep.
is because of Will. It has nothing
Well,
to do with 11.
like you said,
Um,
Charles, it's every good character has to go through a change, and Will goes through, I think, the most
Mhm.
I mean, probably the most drastic changes throughout the entire show and his like just the growth of how powerful he gets, his emotional side of things is a huge change. I think he goes through the most change in terms of
He
the
goes through
entire show.
the most consequential change. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, because again, I gotta give my boy Steve.
Oh yeah,
Steve
no, of course.
Steve really turned around.
No,
But
Steve develops
Will's
internally,
changes.
I think.
Yeah, but Will's is consequential. Like Steve's change isn't
Yeah.
really consequential.
I think him
No.
becoming a baseball coach and a PE teacher is the best ending for him.
Sex ed teacher.
Sex
Sex
ed
ed
teacher.
teacher.
He becomes a sex ed teacher.
Just
Yes,
absolutely
he becomes a sex ed
fantastic.
teacher. You're right. I agree with that. Steve does have the most relatable changes in terms of like growth. Like he's the one that really grows from like peaks in high school to becoming like a real functioning, providing member of society. And I think I mean I feel like most people can relate to that. Like most people knew how they were in high school and see how they are as adults and can relate to that whole progress, that whole change. And you're right, Will does go through the most consequential changes in terms of the story.
Yeah, that was
In
like you,
terms of
Avandro. Like 9 years
y-
ago, you were Steve, and now in the beginning, and
yep,
now you're like Steve at the end. You were a total douchebag,
yep,
and now you're a great guy.
yep. Now I'm cool. Thanks, man. You know what? And I was thinking about it too. When this show first started, I
You're gonna
was
have
not a
kids.
dad. Yeah.
Yeah.
And now I watch this and I
No,
especially like the
it's
scene.
crazy.
I got
It's crazy.
real emotional at the end when Elle is like, "You became my father, but I'm not your daughter." I'm like, "Oh,
Damn, like why you gotta say
good
that to him, man?
God. Why you
Damn.
gotta say that like
I
that?"
know.